Pete Buttigieg. He was the Secretary of Transportation at the Department of Transportation in the United States under Biden. He spent over $80 billion of our dollars on anti-whiteism grants. And as a consequence of the focus on anti-whiteism, remember, it's the moral focus. They were not, or delaying air traffic control, the attention they should have been giving to the air traffic control, the needs of the air traffic control. Of course, we know, I think everybody remembers Tucker Carlson years ago exposing that the testing had been changed to benefit non-whites, to victimize whites, asking questions and giving point values, very high point values to things like, did you play football? Were you into basketball? Very clearly targeting specific groups that are not white. $80 billion. Over $80 billion from the Department of Transportation. Do we get victimized? I mean, over $80 billion from the DOT. It's ineffable. The victimization of our people is ineffable. And the consequences of that victimization are ubiquitous. There is no group of people that has, from the Department of Transportation, $80 billion going toward their victimization. Secretary Pete Buttigieg failed to replace outdated air traffic control systems while in office, with his agency instead shelling out tens of billions of dollars on anti-whiteism, according to federal spending records and airline industry insiders. We don't say DEI. That's what they want it called. We call it what it is, anti-whiteism. You know what's really infuriating me? I'm going to take a look at your comments and see what you all are having to say. Several weeks back, I told you all that I was noticing a uptick, a return in the anti-white concept, a meme pathogen, politically correct, politically incorrect. It started coming out of the news agencies. Again, all of a sudden, this resurrecting politically correct, politically incorrect. Within weeks, the white sympathetic sphere, I don't know what percentage of the white sympathetic sphere is worth a shit. Both the cucks and the schmucks are all saying politically correct. And some of them, you'll hear it, some of them are now saying PC, anti-PC. How can you be this much of a muppet? How can you be this brain dead? They immediately adopt the verbiage of the victimizer. Like this. Just like this. They say it on the news. They put it in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, Rolling Stone. And immediately they adopt it. And they begin talking about the world we live in and our victimization using that concept. We are pushing for years and years and years and making headway, make no mistake, but battling the entire time. And all the system, the anti-white system has to do is, let's feed this out through Newsweek. Let's feed this out in USA Today. Let's feed this out in New York Times. And immediately, every victim begins using the concept. It's truly remarkable. We are the only seeing people in this world of the blind. When I saw this, you can't fathom $1 million. And what is that in seconds? 2.5 days? And what is a billion in seconds? 33 something years? You can't fathom. You cannot. And the social morality that enables that sort of focus and spending on anti-whiteism, you think you're going to defeat it by electing a politician that's going to say, not for now. Nah, I'm just going to cut it for now. That's the social morality that pushed $80 billion in spending on anti-whiteism from the Department of Transportation has gone nowhere. And it will resurface with a vengeance. Just Anime says white women often glorify, well, non-white, yes, black, but non-white generally, and shame white. Yes. Why? Because that's the social morality of the West, is the anti-white immoral imperative. So they are stating that immoral imperative. They are articulating all of the meme pathogens that we all have been infected with. White guys are pathetic, non-white guys are amazing. Our whole lives. And where does that come in from? Primarily and most successfully from entertainment media, which, why is it so successful? Because our subconscious minds cannot tell the difference between fiction and reality. So when we see these things in fiction, we live them with our subconscious mind as reality. What controls our lives? Our conscious or a subconscious mind? Which one? The subconscious mind. 95% of our lives. It's the hubris of the conscious mind that causes people to believe that they can't be controlled that way. And that's why psychological warfare is so powerful, the most powerful weapon on the planet, because of the arrogance and hubris of the human animal. Can't be manipulated while they're being manipulated. In one meeting, Buttigieg, and we got a story, just one we're going to look at after this, that demonstrates one of the millions of deleterious consequences for us as Westmen, men, women, and children, human men, women, and children, Westmen, men, women, and children. One of the millions of ways that we are victimized as a consequence. Buttigieg, who is said to be eyeing the 2028 presidential run, told industry executives that air traffic control upgrades would just allow them to fly more planes. Quote, and so why would that be in his interest? It's not. It's not, because this pig is anti-white. So what's in his interest is victimizing us. What his department was really interested in was handing out hundreds of anti-white. Remember, part of the practice of going free is to translate articles into our story, out of the anti-white narrative into our story. Anti-whiteism totaling more than 80 billion over 4 years. At least, you have to, it's not only the colossal size of that sum of money, but you also have to pay attention to the fact that it's coming from the Department of Transportation. What in the world? What is the actual objective of the Department of Transportation? What is the actual objective? Like, what are they doing at the FBI? What is their job? Why is there an FBI? Why is there an army? Why is there a police department? All of these things and more have been subverted to serve the social morality of the West. Anti-whiteism, the anti-white immoral imperative. They destroy everything like this. So nothing is safe from the morality, the social morality of a people. Nothing is safe. Never forget that. You can't say to yourself, well, DOT, why would they have anything to do with race? Are they staffed by human beings? Because if they are, the DOT will serve the social morality of the West. The FBI, the social morality of the West. The Army, the social morality of the West. The cucks will come along with the abstractions, and they'll call it social engineering. Does anybody remember that one? The abstraction that the cucks loved for so long. Don't hear it as much these days, but they really loved talking about the social engineering. And they were always easily defeated in conversation because they can't say for certain where the social engineering efforts are going to end. Not only that, and end in something good, maybe not something bad. But not only that, but they are accepting the premise that the anti-whites are motivated to arrive at a positive conclusion for everyone. That's what you get by following an abstractionist, an abstraction cuck. They're so terribly bright. Sometimes they speak in a very interesting way. They have a very interesting accent. They speak to you with an interesting accent, and you show up and they're like, I will tell you about Schumann, and we will read from Schumann today. Tomorrow, and then you will feel so very intelligent because you have listened to somebody who is clearly effete and speaks in a weird way that would not allow him to live on the planet. He's definitely pushing an agenda. Really? An air industry official said, noting the transportation secretary had, quote, little to no interest and took definitely zero action. He's definitely pushing an agenda. Everyone is. Stop pretending, cucks out there, that there are human beings without agendas. Buttigieg spent his, so your objective is either going to be white positive or anti-white. That's effectively what it comes down to now. Because if you're a cuck and you think you're going to remedy this with abstractions, you're just anti-white because you're arriving at anti-white conclusions. Every year things get worse. If you're a schmuck, you're anti-non-white, well, you're just also anti-white because what you're pushing arrives at anti-white conclusions. Buttigieg spent his time in President Joe Biden's cabinet blaming the airlines for the delays, and vilifying the industry. So delays, things like Rebecca Lobach. Anybody remember her? Anti-whiteism in the military. And she flew a Black Hawk because she was incapable of flying, but because she was a female there to replace a white male, flew it right into the bottom of a landing airplane and killing everybody. Meanwhile, the tower was having its own problems. Towers all over the country are having problems telling planes where to go, when to go. All of this laid at the feet of Buttigieg. Shouldn't he be held responsible? If we were in a healthy white society, he would be held responsible for the deaths. He was the secretary. Am I alone thinking that? He was the Secretary of Transportation. He did not address, it's one thing if like the guy who's the Secretary of Transportation is on the job 24/7 addressing all of the weaknesses and still an accident happens. Of course, that kind of thing's going to happen. Is he what we can measure? He's committed. Maybe he deserved the job. Is he dropping the ball? This is how the mind of Westman works, or should work, when it's not poisoned by anti-whiteism. And if he's dropping the ball, can this be remedied, or should he be replaced? By the way, did you notice my use of the word replace. In lived experience, is that a negative or a positive? Well, we just saw it's a positive, because if the guy who's underperforming is replaced, the expectation is that the replacement is better. Now you should understand why you never say great replacement for the white erasure of our civilization. So in my mind, I'm thinking that Buttigieg should be arrested and tried for all of the deaths that are a consequence of his intentional mismanagement of the DOT, right? I mean, yes, can I get an amen? Why shouldn't he be? He's responsible for them all being dead. That was his job. Let me ask you, if you operate a forklift for your job, you know, they're big, heavy pieces of machinery, right? And because of your recklessness, because you were paying attention to other things, you kill someone with the forklift. You are culpable. You will be arrested. There will be a trial for one person. Why doesn't that happen for Buttigieg? Vilifying the industry as a whole while denying his department's anti-white agenda led to any air traffic staffing shortages, or was maintaining an ailing safety system that hasn't been updated since the Carter administration. The flying public paid the price, insiders said. At first, the Department of Transportation, who, according to the Post, the people who are being victimized by this is the 80 billion for anti-whiteism is the multiracial flying public. At first, the Department of Transportation said it was reluctant to say there was an air traffic controller shortage, or that shortage had anything to do with flight delays or flight cancellations, the air industry official said. Spokesperson for Buttigieg rejected both claims and pointed to increased air traffic controller hiring. From all of these groups that weren't meeting the requirements that had been in place. They changed the criteria on which you're hired. And specifically, the one about you being a white male being problematic was implemented. Again, according to my reading. Biden's infrastructure law also provided $5 billion to improve air traffic facilities, towers, power systems, suggesting the Secretary Buttigieg chose not to pursue air traffic control. It's falling apart. So I don't care what the spokesperson has to say. It's all falling apart. Near misses every day, infinitely higher, according to my reading, than it was prior. The DOT's Bureau of Transportation statistics show the most qualified cancellations were caused by weather. Okay, on and on. This is, I guess, the spokesperson trying to defend. So let's go ahead and jump to, really let that number stick with you. $80 billion on anti-white initiatives from a department that is tasked with transportation in the United States. So let's see, one of the ramifications just happened. You probably didn't hear about it. I'm not surprised. Airline pilot was about to land when he saw a B-52 coming at us. Did you hear about this? SkyWest Flight 3788, operating as a Delta connection flight from Minneapolis, was preparing to descend into the airport in North Dakota on Friday evening when the flight crew spotted the flight crew. I'm going to ask you, anybody here have a hunch as to why you didn't hear about the flight crew that saved everyone's life on that plane? Anybody want to bet? Anybody want to guess? You want to throw your bets down now? The flight crew spotted the B-52 coming in, literally a stratofortress. And the pilot had to make an emergency move to save everyone's life on this commercial airliner. Flight crew spotted the chilling sight. Large military aircraft B-52 Stratofortress was flying toward them. Quote, you probably saw the airplane kind of sort of coming at us, the pilot later told the passengers. Nobody told us about it. The pilot, after he took this, oh yes, I guess I gave part of it away. Afterward, he got on the mic immediately and told everybody what had just happened, because surely they were shaken. I don't know what an emergency evasive maneuver feels like in a passenger airline, but it's probably not pleasant. And he told them outright, he's like, the tower didn't tell us about this. Not only that, I think we might have an audio. Maybe it's written here. The tower told, I think it was to the right. I think the tower told the pilot, turn to the right. And the pilot said, there's a B-52 there. And then the tower, paid for by Buttigieg and anti-whiteism, said, okay, we'll turn to the left. This is where we've come. This is third worldization of Western civilization. The pilot, who has been officially identified, hasn't been. Why is he not being officially identified? Put the jet through what he called an aggressive maneuver. Another thing, playing down what this guy did. Playing down what he did. Like there is an aggressive maneuver button on the airplane. And anybody can press it in the push button West that the white man has made for everybody. So you don't need a white man in there. Just press the emergency or aggressive maneuver button and everything's fine. To avoid either of two calamities, a collision with the 8-engine bomber or flying too close to its turbulent wake. You do know, I know we got some pilots in the live chat and they can tell you, you can't fly in the wake of another airplane, especially a very big one. Not good for lift on the wings. And you need lift to stay in the air. The pilot, okay. He apologized to the passengers on board who erupted into spontaneous applause after the harrowing close encounter. The Air Force, Federal Aviation Administration, and the airline tell NPR that they are investigating the incident. So maybe this is, will this play? I think we have it here. Oh, it's going to make us go through a commercial. I don't hear anything, do you? That's good. Passenger plane avoids mid-air collision with B-52 jet over North Dakota.
Probably saw the airplane kind of sort of coming at us.
Oh, boy. I think we now know why we're not being told. We were drowned in stories about how great Lobach was of a pilot of that Black Hawk. She killed everyone on that plane, herself and her co-pilot and the other guy in the back of the helicopter. But we had to suffer through these endless conversations about how amazing she is. This, I think you're probably going to conclude he's a white guy, saves everybody on board this plane, and there isn't a word about it. I wonder if this pilot had been a she. I wonder if this pilot had been non-white, if you'd have heard about it. What do you think in the anti-white narrative? What do you think?
Nobody told us about it, and so we continued, and air traffic. There's no radar here, so the tower is controlled, or excuse me, the tower does everything visually, and so they said report about a 6 mile, you're 6 miles from the airport. So we did that. I think he realized that the spacing wasn't going to work, and he said turn right. And I looked over, and there was an airplane, which those of you on the right-hand side, I thought it was a small airplane like the one you see at the airport right now doing touch and goes. And he said, turn right. I said, there's an airplane over there. And he says, turn left. And then by the time we read back the clearance, looked over and saw the airplane that was kind of coming on a converging course with us. So given his speed, it was a military, I don't know how fast they were going, but they were a lot faster than us. I felt it was the safest thing to do to turn behind it. So sorry about the aggressive maneuver. It caught me by surprise. This is not normal at all. I don't know why they didn't give us a heads up, because the Air Force Base does have radar, and nobody said, hey, there's also a B-52 in the pattern.
Okay, so not only does the civilian air traffic controllers are suffering from the consequences of anti-whiteism, too few, too dumb, too confused about what sex they are, what they like to have sex with, too confused about their loyalties. All of that other stuff is important, being that they're anti-white as all hell. But you also have anti-whiteism in the Air Force, where the radar was up and running. They can see the civilian airliner. They can see their B-52 on a converging course with it. They're going to hit midair collision, and the B-52 is hauling ass. They're going to hit. Those people don't say anything either. I wonder what's going on there. I'm going to go ahead and guess, out on a limb, that anti-whiteism has white erased the competent white males. And remember what we know as a consequence of anti-whiteism. If there are white males present, those are not going to be your best white males. Those are going to be the deferential. Those are going to be the white males that are fine with being called white boys. Those are going to be cucks. They're going to be incompetent losers that are tolerated by the other anti-whites present. So they're not told. Folks, you're on this airplane. Your life is over. You get one. One life. We have to take this seriously. This can't be another brush it off, dust our hands off. Wow, that's bad. Let's move on to something else. This is the end of your life, or the end of the life or lives of people you love because of anti-whiteism. And it was only averted by this pilot. Almost assuredly a white guy who saved everybody. It doesn't bring me joy to be right and to tell people, well, it was a white guy. That's why they're alive today. Well, because it ain't going to be a white guy tomorrow. I don't want to be on the plane that doesn't have the white guy, or the white guy that's there is incompetent. I don't want to be I don't want to have loved ones on a plane. And what does on a plane mean in this scenario? Any of the situations in the West now that can take life. With law enforcement, accidents out on the roads, incompetent drivers, fire departments not being able to rescue you, police not able to come to your aid as a consequence of some sort of malefactor breaking in or raping or whatever it is. It's everywhere in our lives. The aviator's explanation was captured on video and shared by a passenger. Okay, that's what we were just listening to. There's a picture of a Stratoforce, so you can see that's no joke. Skywest Airline told NPR in a statement that Flight 3788, a near daily evening flight from Minneapolis, quote, landed safely. And they were cleared for the approach by the tower. It performed a go-around when another aircraft became visible. That sounds so nice. And I just love how third world we are now, where the tower says go right, and he says that's where the plane is. Go left. I mean, there are only two options.